Roll Tide! Roll Tide, roll! This is the Tigers and Tide Alabama Football Podcast from SoutheasternFootball.com. Available on Bama Sports Radio, a V-Sporto channel bringing you all Crimson Tide all the time. Remember to download the Bama Sports Radio free iOS app and follow their channel on Twitter at Bama Sports Radio. Here are your hosts, Brett Mason and Jamie Thomas.
War Eagle, buddy, how are you?
Roll Tide, man, I'm great. I am great.
Reminder again, hello to everybody's listening on the iOS or Android apps. Those are free in the App Store. Allows you to listen to the show anytime you'd like during the week. Just search for Tigers and Tide in the App Store to find it. And, of course, you can subscribe on iTunes, Stitcher, TuneIn, iHeartRadio, YouTube, and more. We're on all those platforms by searching for Tigers and Tide. This is our live show. If you were listening to this on a Monday or a Tuesday and go, is it live right now? No, you missed a live show. Because we did it Sunday night at 8, but you can be listening next Sunday night at 8. Hopefully, if the planets align, we'll do it live again. Of course, we'll always keep you updated on all that on the Facebook page, and if you want to call into the show, you can. This is where we want to head. It would be nice if we can move to a place to where we can do a live show that's just, instead of two podcasts split up, it's just one podcast. We have a phone call segment where people call in, we answer questions. People call up and curse at us for saying bad things about their team. You know, fun stuff like Feinbaum.
That happens all the time anyway.
Look, the world needs another Tammy and another Phyllis.
No, they do not.
Yeah, I agree with you. The number, if you should feel compelled to call this week or any other time, is 334-403-4500. It's area code 334-403-4500. Well, let's jump right into it, man. Overall thoughts on the Alabama game versus ULM?
Well, I mean, it was a game against ULM. We saw what I guess we thought we would see. Toned down offense. Jake Coker really didn't make any really big plays. I don't think he really had an opportunity to really throw the ball downfield too much. I've been hard on Coker this weekend after the game, but after going back and watching, man, he actually didn't play too bad. Stats weren't as great as they could have been, but he had some receivers that dropped a lot of footballs. Some really good and well thrown passes that were just dropped. And Saban touched on that in the press conference. Says that has to stop, and of course it does, because Coker, he doesn't need any help looking any worse than what he has this year. Henry didn't play much. He had the tonsillitis. That could have been, I think he was recovered more or less. I think he was just resting up for Georgia. Defense played pretty good football. We saw some spunk out of a couple of true freshmen that we like to see. I don't know, man. It's hard to tell anything when you play a team like that. This week's got me really worried though.
Well, before we go into talking more about the offense and Coker and things we saw on the field, you're in an interesting spot as an Alabama fan and as an Alabama team. Couple quick things. Alabama dropped in the coaches poll again. I bet you'd be hard pressed to remember how long it's been since Alabama dropped 2 weeks in a row in a poll.
Yeah. Well, it's the first time we've, I guess since 11 or 12 we've been out of the top 10. So.
It's also the first time since 2009 that Alabama has been an underdog to another team.
Yeah.
Look, you can look at that one or two ways. You can say that looks bad for this season, or you can say, holy cow, what has Alabama been since 2009? Yeah. I think it's probably the way you should look at it. I mean, how long can you really expect a team to always be the favorite? I mean, they've beat the odds for, 6 years now? I mean, it's pretty incredible. But Georgia's a slight favorite, but not by much. I think it's 2.5 right now. So basically, people are figuring it'll be a tie game. And I think a lot of that comes from what you've seen out of Alabama. I wonder how much of that had to do with how Ole Miss looked this weekend. Did you see that game? That was a head scratcher.
I think Ole Miss had a big win hangover.
They had a hangover, I think. All teams fall trap to that. You get up for what probably might be your biggest game of the year unless you make it to the playoffs or something. And then next week you're playing a game you think you're going to win by 40 and you fall off a little bit. But still, it was interesting. It was certainly mind-blowing. So Coker had the interception. He's had in 4 games, he's had 4, which look, depends on who you compare it to is how bad that is. You're comparing him to Jeremy Johnson, he looks great. His deep ball continues to not really be a threat. One of the issues that I think is him staring around receivers, and I saw 2 other people write articles about that.
If he got his eye on a receiver, that's who he's going to throw it to. There's no check down. There's no secondary. If he's looking at Kenyon Drake out of the backfield, or if he's looking at Robert Foster across the middle, that's who he's going to throw the ball to.
But he was 17 for 31, 55%. It doesn't look great. I think, as you mentioned, Saban said he had 4 or 5 dropped ones. That would have brought his percentage up to 60-something percent maybe. 158 yards. It wasn't great, but he didn't pass a lot. He had 3 touchdowns. I texted you, I've been a backer of Coker, and you've been down on him, and I'm the Auburn fan. And then in this game, I started having questions about him, and then I think you're maybe feeling a little bit better about him. So, I mean, that's an interesting dynamic to me. I still think the kid can get there. You want to pull for him,
Well, yeah, I mean, you got to pull for him. And trust me, I want him to be a great quarterback. And I'm hoping he's just been kind of holding back. And Saturday against Georgia, we see, the hype that was behind this kid. I mean, he puts that to work, because really he was hyped going into Florida State. He was hyped when he transferred from Florida State. And so far, I just haven't seen what the big deal and what the big fuss about Jake Coker's been. I don't know, man. He's going to have to play lights out Saturday.
It's very similar, his story, to the Jeremy Johnson story, isn't it? They were both hyped up to be the greatest thing since sliced bread. They came in and performed way under expectations, and then I think it maybe makes you think maybe he's even worse than he maybe really is, just because of the expectation factor. The only other thing I'd like to mention on offense and get your thoughts on it is the offensive line looked out of sorts to me. Maybe it's because the game plan was dumbed down and they weren't doing anything spectacular, but it didn't seem to me like they were helping the quarterback much or the running backs much.
Well, the right side has been a problem all year. It was a problem against Ole Miss. It was a problem against Wisconsin. It was a problem against ULM. We have some problems at right tackle. I can't believe that that's the best product that we have to put on the field right now. I don't know. I mean, we're seeing a lot of mistakes that we're just not used to seeing in that area of the game. Bama has been known for that big, dominating, disciplined offensive line over the last several years. And this year they're getting beat on both sides.
So the defense, I thought the defense by far was the bright spot of the game. Before we talk about them real quick, we're just going to experiment and see if we can pipe in some of Saban's thoughts after the game. So let's give this a listen.
Well, look, I was pleased with the fact that our guys went out there and competed hard in the game and really tried to take a step in a direction of sort of establishing, the kind of identity that we want to have as a football team, play with a lot of toughness, especially on defense. To give a team, 90-some yards is, really good. I thought we tackled well in space, got a couple turnovers, did a good job on third down, especially in the first half. So that was really positive. I thought offensively, we stopped ourselves, way too many times with, I think we had 5 drop balls. Several of those were on third down. 4th and 1, we were going to make a first down. We were illegal motion. So, we really need to clean up some of those things. We played it pretty tight to the vest today, and I think we probably, need to do a little more. But I thought Jake did a good job, and, however you look at the stats, you got to look at the drops. And, that's not really his fault. He made some good throws.
Well, he talked pretty good about Jake Coker. He seemed in this press conference to be higher on Jake Coker than he'd been in any other press conference. So maybe he's thinking he's about to turn the corner or something. He went out of his way to defend him, which is something I don't think we've seen a lot of before.
Yeah, no, we usually don't see that out of him. That's for sure.
All right, defense. Boy, the defense is definitely the bright spot on this team. 92 yards of total offense they allowed. Again, it's ULM, but it's still impressive no matter who you play, in my opinion. Had 6 sacks. That's the most in any game this season. That's pretty impressive. All 6, too, wasn't doing blitz and stunts and stuff. It was just Alabama bringing 4. That's pretty.
Yeah, that's not going to happen against teams like Georgia and State and some other guys.
But it was impressive. I thought it was impressive. I don't think Auburn could do that. Just let me put that out there. And the rushing defense was stifling. I mean, they just shut them down. I don't know what maybe you saw on the defense. Things you're still concerned about. Things you saw that was better. Maybe talk about that a little bit.
Well, I mean, we saw some big plays out of the secondary. The freshman Brandon Harris. Maybe he's got a chance to step up and be that playmaker we've been looking for back there. Haven't heard an updated report from Jonathan Allen. The big defensive tackle that went out of the game. With a shoulder injury. We're definitely going to need him against Georgia. I think overall the defense played great. The defensive line was dominating. The linebackers, were hawking to the ball, made some big plays. And the secondary looked better. Again, though, it was ULM. It wasn't like last week against Chad Kelly and the bigger and better receivers like Ole Miss had. So it's going to be interesting to see, what they can do against Georgia this week. Georgia's a team that has established the running game with Nick Chubb. I think Bama can shut down Chubb. Well, I don't want to say shut down because he's going to get his yards, but I think they can contain him and keep him from busting the big plays that we've been seeing Nick Chubb have. The question is going to be if Georgia going to open up the passing game. If they do, we really haven't seen them really air the ball out yet this year, so we don't know what they're capable of doing. That's always, or for the last few years, has been the question mark for Alabama. Can the secondary shut down the passing game?
Yeah, and Georgia's been in a position where they haven't had to try to air the ball out, and if you don't have to, why? And so it'll be interesting to see what happens when. See, I think that's the problem you run into when you're a team like that and you don't have to, so you don't ever do it. I think you don't have an opportunity to find a sync, find a rhythm to be comfortable with it. So I think it's going to make them uncomfortable because I think Alabama's going to be able to make them have to go to the passing game more than anybody else anyway. I mean, look, Chubb's a beast. There's no doubt about that. But they're going to be able to stop them better than anybody else has this year, I think. And so, maybe they take that kid out of his comfort zone. Maybe you see some things happen. Maybe you see Alabama's defense come up big in the passing game, which I know would make you very happy. But I think that probably going to have to happen to win, I would say.
Yeah, definitely going to have to happen.
So, I know you don't get into score predictions, or anything, but do you think Alabama's going to be able to pull out a win there, or how nervous are you?
I'm extremely nervous. I told you at the beginning of the year I felt like this was the game that Bama would lose in the regular season. And with the loss to Ole Miss already, this is make or break for Alabama. They have to win every game now in order to stay in playoff contention. And I don't know. Man, as a Bama fan, you want to say, yeah, they're going to come out and they're going to win this football game. It's going to be a good, hard-fought game. But at the same time, I can see Georgia winning this game by a couple of touchdowns. Not necessarily via offensive performance. Coker could throw a couple of interceptions. That could be pick sixes or could shorten the field for Georgia, give them easy points. Same thing that happened against Ole Miss. They didn't come out, they didn't play perfect football, and they got their tails whipped. So, I don't know, man. I'm going to stick away from picking a winner on this one, but I'm just going to go on record. I think we have less than 50% chance of winning this football game.
We're getting very, very close to the end of the podcast. I want those phone number out there one more time, just in case someone. I'm very bummed we got 0 phone calls, Jamie. Can I tell you?
Well, first time, man. First time.
Well, I told you when I texted you that we, to see what you thought about trying it live. I think it takes several weeks for people to build up one, tuning in live as a habit, and 2, becoming comfortable enough with the show that they want to call in and talk to us. So I think it's a process. But usually there's always one freak that just don't care. And so I figured we'd at least get that person calling.
At least nobody's calling while they're in the shower.
Yeah, thank goodness. The number again, though, if you want to squeeze in the last seconds we would love to have somebody on. 334-403-4500 is the number. 334-403-4500 is the number. So I got thoughts in general, and then just quickly about special teams that we didn't mention. Griffith just looked way better, which was good news, I guess, for Alabama. It would be nice to think if you got into a close game at Georgia, for instance, where you needed a field goal to win, that you could feel a lot better about it. And maybe did he alleviate some of your fears about him this past weekend?
He looked like he got his confidence back a little bit. The sound of the football, actually sounded like he was making good contact with the football. I don't know. He seemed to have a little bit of confidence at the end of the game. He was celebrating just a little bit. So I don't know. He's got a pretty decent leg. Accuracy has been the issue. It would be great to believe that if this game come down to it, and he needed to hit a 40 to 45 yarder to win the ball game, that we could trust in him. But again, man, the track record is just there. The kicking game's been such a problem in Alabama for several years now.
So I'm going to throw a hypothetical out there, and I don't even really know what the answer to this is, other than it's just something to swirl around in your head and think about it, like you're swirling an Old Milwaukee Light around and savoring the flavor. I think probably some listeners might identify. Look, I enjoy an Old Milwaukee Light. If something happens now, and Alabama were to lose to Georgia, can you even fathom that we have a season 5 games in where both SEC teams in the state of Alabama are winless in the SEC?
Total meltdown across the entire state.
How crazy is that?
It's ridiculous.
Like they, one or other or the both, have been in contention really to play for it all for what, the last 6 years, 7, 8, 9
both teams,
years?
Preseason top 10s, high expectations. Jeremy Johnson was the Auburn savior. Muschamp was the defensive guru that was going to turn it around. And on the other side, you had the analysts like Herb Street and a couple of the other talking heads from ESPN talking about how this was the biggest, talented, most physical Alabama team that any of them have ever seen, and wouldn't anybody beat them.
Yeah.
Man, it's just it was a complete miss on both sides.
I bought in less to the Auburn thing than I did the Alabama thing. The defense, everybody was talking about the defense was going to be massive. I thought it would be good pretty much all the way around. Your only question was quarterback, but I just didn't think that would matter all that much because Saban's shown that he can run a great offense with an average quarterback. So I'm like, it won't be any big deal. And now, it's crazy. Look, I'm going to put the reputation of the state of Alabama on you and your team, all right? So,
well, no pressure.
Y'all go take care of Georgia. And so it doesn't look just horrible for the state. And then maybe somehow Auburn can figure out how to win a game sometime in the next 6 weeks would be fantastic. All right. Great live show. We didn't break anything. Nobody said the F word. I think that's probably quite an accomplishment. If you're listening to this on the replay, we're going to continue to do this at 8 on Sundays. We've managed to kind of be able to do that the entire year, even though it never was live. Something may come up. We're human beings with lives. I don't know. Just keep close to the Facebook page. We'll keep you updated on that. And jot the number down for future reference, 334-403-4500. If you're listening to the replay, which airs throughout the entire week on the V-Sporto networks or on our own app, our iOS and Android apps in the App Store, Tigers and Tide, or however you listen, just know you can listen to the show live on Sunday. Not only that, you can be a part of the show. Dude, I really enjoyed it, and I'll talk to you again. Maybe we'll do a midweek show. How's that sound?
Sounds good, man.
All right.
I'm excited.
Talk to you then, buddy. War Eagle.
Roll Tide.
Don't forget to follow us at Tigers and Tide 1 on Twitter and Facebook.com/Tigers and Tide. Also, be sure to follow Bama Sports Radio at Bama Sports Radio for the latest on Crimson Tide sports. Thanks for listening to the Alabama Football Podcast from SoutheasternFootball.com on Bama Sports Radio of the Sporto channel. Download our free iOS app. Just search for Tigers and Tide in the App Store. And subscribe to our podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, TuneIn, and iHeartRadio. Just search for Tigers and Tide. And for the latest SEC news, log on to SoutheasternFootball.com.